Okay. All right. So, there's a proposed sale by the Cincinnati Southern Railway Board of their line to Norfolk Southern Corporation. Norfolk Southern has operated it for many years, as we'll see as we go through here. It was voted upon by the Board of Trustees and was a unanimous vote to sell. There are some contingencies to that have to be met, so we'll go over those as well. So the Cincinnati Southern Railway is the only city-owned interstate railroad in the United States. The city of Cincinnati owns it. They were concerned about the decline in riverboat traffic beginning in the 1830s. So they were prompted to take action, especially after the Commonwealth of Kentucky chartered the Louisville and Nashville Railroad in 1850. So there was a fear that the L&N would give their neighbor Louisville downriver a competitive advantage. And so the city worked to be able to construct a railroad. So the state of Ohio authorized the Ferguson Act of 1869, which allowed the railroad to be built and owned by the city. Construction began in 1873, and the Cincinnati Southern Railway was completed December 10th, 1879 as a 5-foot gauge railroad. It was converted to standard gauge in 1883, and it is 337 miles long, runs between Cincinnati, Ohio, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. It goes through Lexington and Georgetown and Danville and down through Somerset and then down through Tennessee to Chattanooga. The city, of course, they had no interest in operating the railroad themselves, so they almost immediately leased it to the Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Texas Pacific Railroad, and that happened in 1881. The CNO&TP itself became a wholly owned subsidiary of the Southern Railway System in 1895. As a Southern Railway System was one of J.P. Morgan's consolidations of various railroads and railways in the South around that time. Southern Railway, of course, became part of Norfolk Southern in 1982, and Norfolk Southern has operated the railroad since that time. The Cincinnati Southern Railway, or CNO&TP, it was known as the Rat Hole. That nickname came because of 27 tunnels that were originally on the route. The tunnels necessitated the use of gas masks by crews and the steam locomotives assigned to the CNO&TP were equipped with Wimble smoke deflectors. A Wimble smoke deflector ran along the top of the boiler, allowed the engineer to use a pneumatic closing device to close off the smokestack and push the smoke back through the smoke deflector further back along the boiler, closer to the cab or closer to the back of the locomotive, and then it shot it up at a 30-degree angle. So that reduced the amount of smoke in the cab and I think also protected the roofs of the tunnels, because they had problems early on with tunnels, the tops of them falling and people being injured and causing accidents because of collapses. So it helped with that as well. In 1901, Tunnel 6 at Sloan's Valley, Kentucky was the first to be daylighted. Now, there were realignment projects for the construction of Lake Cumberland in 1950, and then line improvements in the 1960s eliminated all except for the 4 tunnels that remain today. All of the remaining tunnels are either new bores from 1963, or they were enlarged to handle the double stacks and high wide loads that the railroad was trying to operate at that time. The city of Cincinnati issued $35 million in bonds in 1961, and they increased the Southern Railway's annual lease payment to fund the line improvements. The last of the line improvements was completed and placed in service July 15th, 1963. I guess interestingly about that, several years ago, a few of us were doing some rail fanning down on the Tennessee side there, and at Sunbright, Tennessee. I was driving my Volkswagen with the built-in Garmin, and my Volkswagen's a 2013, but it still has the line at the pre-1963 location, and it's still not on where it is today. So interestingly enough, Garmin still hasn't updated their maps. So anyway, the sale was one of the things that obviously is the most recent issue to come up. This isn't the first time that the idea of selling the railroad has come up. There's been multiple times that various politicians have suggested selling the CNO&TP or selling the Cincinnati Southern Railway in order to fund various projects or pay off debts. But it's never before been gotten as far as actually voting or the Board of Trustees agreeing to do it. This time it has. The Cincinnati Southern Railway Board of Trustees met November 21st, 2022, and they voted unanimously to the sale of the railway to Norfolk Southern Corporation. The sale price is $1.62 billion, and that's based on all contingencies being met. Proceeds from the sale are to establish an infrastructure trust fund to be used for the long-term maintenance and improvement of existing city infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, parks, and recreation areas. Conservative estimates of the investment income from the trust fund are $50 to $60 million per year without touching the principal. And currently the annual lease payment from Norfolk Southern to Cincinnati for the railroad is $25 million per year. And that has increased from $19 million per year 5 years ago. So what are the contingencies? The contingencies are one of the main contingencies is that the Ohio General Assembly must amend the Ferguson Act, which it only currently permits funds from the sale of the railway to be used to repay city debts. That act must be amended specifically to permit the creation of the infrastructure trust fund, which is the desired use of the funds at this time. Also, since it's a city-owned railway, the city of Cincinnati voters have to approve the sale in the general election in November of 2023. There were also mentions about who can lobby for this. The city and the Board of Trustees as groups are forbidden from spending any city money to lobby for it. However, Norfolk Southern, they're not prohibited in any way from spending any money to lobby voters to vote to sell it to them, which I would imagine the railroad would probably like to buy it, because then they control its future, and they don't pay lease anymore and don't have to renegotiate that every 25 years or anything along those lines. So I think NS probably has a real desire to be able to purchase that, and may truly spend some money to do some lobbying and marketing of this decision. But the city is forbidden from doing it themselves. So if the contingencies of the sale aren't met, then the current lease does come up for renewal in 2026. And Norfolk Southern has an existing option to renew it for an additional 25 years. So what happens next? So the sale of the railway may be good for the city, and the infrastructure trust fund will be a long-term success. Maybe they make more money in the long term by selling the railway and using the trust fund to fund the infrastructure. With it being politically motivated, maybe it's good initially, but politicians later change the trust fund and fritter away the money on who knows what. Not that politicians would ever do that, but the possibility exists. And then I guess the last item there is that the sale could fail if one of those contingencies aren't met. And then, of course, if that happens, Norfolk Southern would continue to renew their lease, probably in perpetuity, or until the next time the city decides to sell the line. So that's pretty much it.